Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show, episode 105. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today is Logan Stump.
How's it going, Jordan? How's
You
life?
thought you could get away with me, but I'm back full time now.
I know I was taking over the show, and then it did not have as much success as when it does when you're on. So I figured I'd let you back in.
Thank you for unlocking the door, letting me back in. We are going to be previewing Chicago, Columbus, DC United, and Red Bull New York. So that is the four teams. I know we said Orlando last episode, but we actually worked it out where each episode of the remaining previews can have four teams. So to not overload this one with five and have one of them have three, we're just going to space it out evenly here. So Orlando will be covered in the next episode, though I'm sure you already know that because the episode is titled. So you probably already know the teams we're covering. But I feel like I should say it anyway. I feel like that's just good host duties, right? To actually say what we're talking about.
It just depends. I think sometimes it's kind of fun to go on an adventure and not tell people what you're talking about. Just go at random. I think that gets a lot of listenership when you just start talking about topics at random, and that usually does pretty well.
Yeah, so today we're actually breaking down Chicago Fire, the TV show. We're actually going to talk... Not the team. Just kidding. No, we'll get into Chicago Fire and talk a little bit about them first. They're going to be the first team we look at here. But before we jump into that right away here, just how are you, Logan? Haven't talked to you in a day or so.
I didn't have work today, so it was good. Actually,
you were off.
Yeah, I was off. But you know what's exciting, Jordan? I spent a lot of time just taking like online course stuff. So that was a lot of fun. Just kind of brushing up on some skills. And it was a lot of fun and doing a lot of not fun things. But then for the last 2 hours or 3 hours, I've been watching some Bundesliga while I was doing these notes for today's show. So kind of filling out some show notes and staying busy doing that. And that usually takes me about 2 or 3 hours to do, but I enjoyed doing it. It's a lot of fun to kind of look through different teams and get different perspectives. I love catching up on Chris Smith's stuff, which he's really helped out with some of the stuff because I've got some of the opinions that he had on some of these players actually in the show notes today. So it should be pretty interesting, and looking forward to getting into some of these teams. They're interesting teams today. We went through and we're covering some really good teams on the last show. This episode, we're going to do some teams that really struggled and kind of hanging on for their playoff lives.
Interesting. Yeah.
How was your day, Jordan? How was work?
Awful. I should have just took the whole week off. It's really what I decided. I should have done. Because I got back Tuesday. Wednesday, we recorded our episode while I was off. And then, it was back to work for 2 days. And, being off for 2 days, going back to work for 2 days is good in the sense of, okay, only 2 days till the weekend. But you're like, man, I should have just took off those other 2 days. I could have done so many more fun things. But, we'll see how it goes. I got a podcast tomorrow that I'm doing. So that'll be fun. Do
you have other podcasts? I've not heard of any.
Yeah, I have just another one.
I'm curious as to which one it is. Is it Pixel Pals or what was Pixel Pals?
No, it is. We are doing. I'm having Jack on the Marvel podcast to do not talk Marvel stuff. We're actually going to talk DC. We're going to talk Peacemaker on HBO Max.
Hey, that'll be fun.
Which was a show that Jack and I really enjoyed. So we're gonna talk that. I have a little spin-off over there on kind of the way this show started off as a spin-off of Stoppage Time. I have a little spin-off over there called DC Elseworlds, and it's where I just talk DC stuff, but I've only done like 2 or 3 of those.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to talk Peacemaker there, and then, we're actually in talks. I'm actually in talks to sign Jack to a contract.
Are you really?
To bring back Behind the Dreams.
Is this a pre-contract? Like is he in contract with somebody else and you're kind of signing him up from underneath?
No. We're just in we're in negotiations,
I
right?
see.
And we're looking to bring back Behind the Dreams. So
Jordan, can you
could
say
be
that
some
he's
fun.
jacked up to do the show?
He is. He loves talking Disney. So if
Yeah.
people don't know what Behind the Dreams is, it was a Disney podcast I had with my sister, but she's kind of busy at the times. And then COVID happened, so there's no theme park news to talk about. So yeah, we're kind of getting maybe back into doing that. But if we do it, it'll be like bi-weekly. I don't think we're going to be doing weekly shows.
Yeah.
For that. Plus, I just don't have the the time in a week right now. But this show will be going back to weekly or so. So that'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be good. So just keep an eye out for that. If people want to hear me talk even more nonsense, it's on your way. It's on the way. It's on the way. Before we get into it as well, again, just our stupid merchandise. You can buy that.
Can we call it that?
Our stupid merchandise. Yes, yeah. That's what I call it.
We'll call it the stupid merchandise store.
We are fooked. I don't know why Charlotte fan would want that, but I thought it was funny, so I made it. Then Philadelphia, we got the curtain is open. The window and the curtain for the Union to win a championship is open, and that's celebrating it with some snakes and lightning bolts. So I should make a shirt that says, "We want a center stripe," and make a huge gold center stripe on it just to shove it up the Union right there.
All right, Jordan. So you want to hear my idea, and nobody can steal this from us.
Oh yeah, because you didn't tell me. I remember that Wednesday when I'm editing. I'm like, oh crap, you didn't tell me.
Yeah, I know. I was listening to the episode going to work the other day, and I promise I'm not conceited. I just go back to like to listen to see how the quality is. But I did notice that I didn't tell what the ideas are, Jordan. I think it's perfect if we start doing like these shirts, just kind of like what you mentioned, these very obvious shirts that are just kind of, things that should be happening or should be said about a team. So for instance, like bring back the center stripe or whatever it might be. But there's different versions of this. I know that there's a company that actually does, it's actually called obviousshirts.com or something like that, that does they started with the Cubs and they've done, I think they do NBA and baseball, but they've not really broken into the MLS scene, I don't think. So I think that'd be kind of fun to just do some very obvious shirts that are just point blank. I mean, I'll have to show you what I mean off the air, but I think they're pretty clever. So I think we can get away with some of the pretty obvious stuff for MLS, but I promise it's actually pretty entertaining. It's just like the most basic font, but it gets a lot of attention, so it's pretty fun.
All right, so keep an eye on that too, because we're trying to make stuff for all teams. And maybe you're an Atlanta fan that just wants to get at your rivals, your new rivals. So that's why you can wear that too. But so let's get into it. Enough horsing around here. We're gonna put out some fires. We're gonna talk about the Chicago Fire again, not the television show. We're talking a team that finished 12th in the East, 34 points and 54 goals allowed. 34 points, but also only scored 34 goals. So they're, scoring a goal a point pretty much at that clip there. And it caused some change, Logan. They're bringing in a new coach. They're bringing in Ezra Hendrickson. Hired him back in November. He spent 13 seasons coaching domestically and internationally. He was an assistant coach for for Crew. And he, started coaching with the Sounders, was an assistant for Ziggy Schmidt there, and, has a history of winning stuff as an assistant. 4 U.S. Open Cups, an MLS Supporter Shield, MLS Cup 2020 for the Crew, the Campeones Cup for the Crew in 2021. So, I mean, he's got some history there, but he was never like the lead coach there. So this will be a test for Hendrickson. Can he do it, on a hot night in the middle of Chicago, and, get this team on the right track? A team that has been very aimless since God, who knows when at this point? I mean, I'm thinking when they signed Bastian Schweinsteiger, that was cool, but I don't even know if they made the playoffs during his stretch there. But so that's what I'm going to check real quick. And of course, you search Chicago Fire, and the first thing that comes up is the TV show. Let me find the actual team.
I've got the Wikipedia pulled up. Don't know how accurate this is going to be, but
dang it! I clicked the wrong
did you
link.
click the show?
I clicked the show again.
Let me know what the show like. When was the show airing, and does it have any correlation with how they performed?
Yeah. Okay. Let's do that real quick. Hold on.
Chicago Fire got really good, like the show, as they got, progressively bad. Like
okay. So let's look at their history here. Okay, so they missed the playoffs. Okay, so they made the playoffs last. That's what I'm trying to find out. When's the last time?
2017 was their last time.
2017 was the last time in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you find that on the wiki?
I got wiki, yeah. They made the playoffs in 2017, but before that it was 2012.
Year by year. Okay, here you go. Okay, then they were third place in the conference. There you go. So Chicago Fire came out in 2012. Okay.
Okay, so yeah. Yep.
Let's see. And their highest rated season on TV was from September 25th of 2019 to April 15th, 2020. So when Chicago Fire, the show, is doing well, the team is not, it seems like.
So they just need to cancel the show, which I think it's coming in like a couple of years. They'll end it. And then this, Jordan, the Chicago Fire will be good again.
Okay, so the worst seasons for the Fire were 2014 when they finished 9th, 2015 when they finished 10th, 2016 when they finished 10th, 2018 when they finished 10th, and 2020 when they finished 11th. This has 11th. You wrote down 12. Is that right? Oh, you know what? They don't have the 2021 season on.
Yeah, they don't have that listed, yeah.
So then 12th. So 2017 is the lone exception of them making the playoffs and finishing higher than 8th.
Yikes.
And before that, you ready for before that, Logan?
Are
you ready for this?
Yeah.
I know you're probably looking at it.
I am, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
1998, second place.
Wow.
They win MLS Cup. 1999, third place. 2000, first. 2001, first. 2002, third. 2003, first. 2004, fifth. 2005, third. 2006, third. 2007, fourth. 8 and 9, second. 2010, fourth. 2011, sixth. 2012, fourth. 2013, sixth. And since the advent of the show, really, they have just plummeted. So there you go.
You know what's funny? Back in 2012, was it 2012? No, it would have been 2014 when I came back from the program. I was living with my brother in a house downtown. And 2014, I was actually like looking for an MLS team to follow. I had kind of jumped on the Chicago bandwagon before like 2013, 2014. Like when I came back down, like I got back from the program and I was in that house still, and I liked the Fire, but then Orlando came about and I was like, okay, fine, I'll just switch, because I almost did choose Chicago because they had success in the past. And I was like, well, if I lose, I had thought I'd end up in Chicago at some point in time. That obviously didn't happen. I ended up in Orlando, and I'm glad I didn't. But now it was like I was going to follow Chicago because I knew they had had success. They hadn't been like, Seattle, but they had been, third, fourth, second, third, like all those. So I was like, man, that's a cool team to kind of follow. And I liked what they were doing, but now I'm glad I didn't do that.
It took until 2011 for them to fall below sixth place in the East. Now, one thing that we have to say too, okay, let's clarify, I guess, right? There wasn't many teams back in those original times.
Mm-hmm.
So even when they finish fifth in 2004, they did not qualify for the playoffs. Then they did not qualify for the playoffs in 2010 or 2011 when they finished 4th and 6th in the East. So, but I would say, if you look just historically where they're finishing place-wise, everything's going good until 2014, and that's what they want to turn around here. Because the reason why we keep bringing up the show is not just a joke. If you search Chicago Fire, it is the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Before that show came out, you could actually search Chicago Fire and find them, but it coincides with when the show came out and the fact that they've played badly, that their results are buried. You like, their website is the second option when you just search Chicago Fire, but if you're looking up just other information, the Wikipedia, anything, if you just search Chicago Fire, it's ChicagoFireNBC.com, ChicagoFireFC.com, and then just a whole bunch of Chicago Fire related things, the TV show. And that is where this team needs to be good again, and it will really put them on the map. That's what it comes down to. It's not just that a show has the same name. The team's not relevant. If the team is relevant and does well, then the search results are going to reflect that at a certain point.
They've tried to rebrand. They've tried to do a lot of things. Raphael Wiki, they thought could turn this, team around, this franchise around, but they just hasn't been able to do it. They switch over to Ezra Hendrickson. I've listened to a couple interviews with him because Extra Time had him on, and he's an interesting guy to listen to, and he's had a lot of success with guys that he's kind of coached underneath. So I think he's learned a lot. I mean, coaching under Siggy Schmidt is going to help a ton. Being with those Columbus teams, being with the Sounders, like, those are really good clubs to just kind of follow in behind. And I'm sure, it's just kind of like Gonzalo Pineda, right? Like, it's underneath that tutelage of a really good coach that has had success in this league and has built pretty much a franchise or a cornerstone of a franchise in this league, or at least a couple of them. I think this is the step in the right direction, Jordan. But wait till we get to their outgoing and incoming players. It's going to be a really rough year. I think this is a team, Jordan, that I think will throw into the wooden spoon contention, just because I think they're going to be that bad. Like, I think it's going to be a really bad year because it's going to be a lot of growing. A lot of players in their back line are really young. Their goalkeeper's 17 going on 18. He'll turn 18 this year. That's a really young back line with a really young goalkeeper, and why he had success last year. It's concerning. So, outgoing players, Jordan: Robert Barrich, Francisco Calvo, who didn't really play that well, Bobby Shuttleworth, who was a veteran that they could rely on between the posts, who actually got replaced when they did have the young keeper come in, and Gabriel Solanina. They also had Alvaro Medran leave, Lucas Stojanovic leave, Ignacio Aliseda, and Johan Kapelov. That name not as big, but the other names, Jordan, those were all starting 11 players at one point last year. And that's pretty much their whole attack that I just read off. So that was, Lucas Stojanovic was really good. Robert Barrich was their goal scorer, and that was about it. Alvaro Medran was somebody that we had previewed last year to have a really successful season, and he's gone. So that's their outgoing. And then that's wild, just because it's kind of like Miami when they blew it all up, except this time, they're replacing it. Now, they did bring in some interesting replacements, but I don't know how they necessarily translate to this league.
Look, I'm not as down on them as you are.
Yeah.
I think look, let's talk about the incoming players, right? You got Shabilko, who is like the top Union scorer of all time. So you're bringing them in. You're bringing Shaqiri in, which, European quality. He could, Matt's kind of down on it. Matt doesn't follow MLS, but he's familiar with Shaqiri, where he says that's what everybody says, right? Everybody says that, well, if he, he's got a fresh start, he's going to do well here. It's a little different when it's MLS, I think, than overseas, because I do think the level is easier for him. And it really comes into, is it a mental thing with him? Is it an ego thing with him, or is it just he's not good enough for over there? And that's what it'll come down to. If it's just like a physical ability thing where he can tear it up here, then he'll tear it up here. But if it's something where he's like, comes in like a Gonzalo Higuain and thinks, I'm not going to be able to, I can have a cigarette or whatever, then maybe he's not going to succeed here. So that's something we'll have to see.
His interview, did you hear his, like, when they announced him, when they did that video of him? Basically, it was like he's in the mob and he's sitting in, I don't know if it's a church. I don't want to get it wrong, but he's in a building. It's like a warehouse almost looking, church looking building. And he's
Mm-hmm.
sitting in like a really big chair, and it like pans over onto his face, and he goes, I think it's all like, it's like, here I come. And then he goes, Chicago. The way he says Chicago, I'm like, this guy, it sounds so intimidating. The way he says Chicago. Um, but again, like you said, if he translates well over here, then it'll be really good for Chicago. I do worry just because, everywhere he's been, and I know it's a different league, but also, I mean, he's been to every league, and he ends up being a guy that people are like, oh, this guy's going to be really good. And all of a sudden he ends up on a bench somewhere and he just sits there. And it's like, okay, well, he's good at sometimes, but then other times it's like he just disappears into, the depths of the bench. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see him play. He's, I mean, tenacious. He's all over the pitch. He flies around. He's very physical. So I think he'll adapt well to the physicality of the league.
And look, this is not official yet, but this was 2 days ago. Paul Tenorio saying that sources confirm that Chicago Fire and Atlas are agreeing to terms with Jairo Torres.
Yeah.
Talented young Mexican player. Like that.
Huge upside.
The fact that they're getting like Shaqiri and they're going out to get Torres, and then you just I think you mentioned what Shihus, is that how you say his name?
I think that's how you say that. Yeah,
Rafael Shihus from FC Cologne. Like they're bringing in talent, and it's new ownership recently, right? It's new coach. I don't know. I feel good vibes right now with them actually bringing in good players, but they've had some of these good players in the past that have not panned out, or like Baric, who does well, but the team doesn't do well. And it's really going to be a question mark for this team. I have them, when you talk about the worries that you have written down here, tons of new guys in, losing a bunch of their starters, their defense not being very good last year, question marks on if Shabilko can convert more. I mean, I know he, top Union goal scorer, very talented MLS goal scorer, but at times missing sitters and stuff. Will that come to bite them? It's all of those things that might add up to not a good season, but not a disastrous season. But it could very well end up disastrous. So I think the talent will outweigh the worries, I think. And I have them more at like, let me look at just how many places we have. So they finished 12th last year. I'd say they can get kind of in that 8 to 10 spot. Maybe 11. Maybe that 8 to 11. Like really, the East is so tight at times. It could be whatever, but I'm thinking they'll go up at least a spot or two. I hope. And I think that would show some sort of forward progress under the new brand and under a new coach and with some new players in. I think that could maybe instill some new, remember they're playing in Soldier Field too. So they can fit more fans in there. The thing is, they don't really get that many fans there, but maybe a good season with players like Shaqiri coming in and Torres coming in. Maybe that is enough that they can kind of push and get fans in there. I mean, if they show up for Bears games, you should show up for a Chicago Fire game, because it's not like the Bears are going anywhere. So I don't know. I think they can go up a few places, but they got to sort out the defense and they got to score more. And if they do that, they can add another 10 points, be it 44 points. That'd be an improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at the East. Miami's concerning. Cincinnati's always concerning. Um, but this team's not, I mean, they've got the talent, like you said. I think the talent far outweighs, just some of the abilities that the other teams have. But in the struggles, I think they'll just collect points just on sheer talent. But I am interested to see because Casper's biggest thing is when the guys aren't servicing him well in the box, like that's when he becomes, non-existent. I just don't know who's going to put the ball in for him unless it's going to be Shaqiri. And I don't know if, I think he's going to play in more behind him. And I don't know if Casper is really that successful in, creating a ball from his, creating chances from his feet and going. I mean, you've watched him more, but getting around defenders and playing in the box tends to be more of his style where he's just finishing around the post or, he's finishing headers in the back. But it's like, can Shaqiri create enough for him going forward to where he can get in positions that he's likes to score in? Was just my concern. But yeah, I think you're right. But they'll definitely contend with, I think, some of the worst teams in the league just because their defense is just not, it's just not been good. And I think there's a lot of growing pains that are still going to be happening. And anything's better than Calvo was, their former DP player that was probably one of the worst defenders in the whole league last year. So I don't know. Be interesting, but I'm sure we should move on so that way we don't spend too much time. But I'm interested to see if Chicago can break out of the bottom. I just don't know if I see it.
Okay. So let's take a look at Columbus, 9th in the East after everyone and their mother had them first, right?
Right.
41 goals last year. That's it. But they only gave up 45. And Logan's cat is why he's laughing there.
I'm getting absolutely mauled right now, though. She defends better than Chicago.
She looks so cute, though. Oh, look at her. Oh, my goodness. I think you just scared her with your laughing. She jumped down. Columbus Crew. Everybody had them ranked top of the East. They have such a deep team. They just won MLS Cup. They're going to be great. And sadly, or happily, depending on who you're a fan of, I guess, was not the case. New stadium, lower.com field. While it's a new stadium, it's still an awful name. And just a lot of injuries really piling up for the Crew. So they finish 9th in the East, 1 point below the playoff line, with only 13 wins from the 34 regular season games. So even after all this adversity, Logan, they could have still qualified for the playoffs if they had just gotten like 2 more points throughout the season. 1 more win throughout the season, which I'm sure there was times that they were in winning positions and lost. So there is, they had 9 games, a stretch of 9 games in which they lost 8 from mid-July to September. This is where they really started tanking. Not tanking like in the term of purposely losing, but just, falling down. You had Zardes injured, Artur injured, Aiden Moore is injured, Kevin Molino missed most of the season. And, that's where they were kind of left with. And we thought, okay, this team had a huge depth. Had huge depth. They weren't going to be a issue, but now some of that depth is leaving. You want to talk about who left the Crew?
Yeah, so these guys near around 1,000 or more minutes, so they're going to have to go in and replace some of these guys, which they do with some of the incomings, but not. Again, it's an interesting piece together by the Crew, and I'm sure we'll get into it when we get into in. But the out players, Abubakar Keita, Vito Vormhor, I think that's how you say that, Harrison Awful, Milton Valenzuela, and then you got some of the guys that are in and around that were more of just kind of depth pieces: Sebastian Berhalter, Waylon Francis, Eric Dick, Grant Lillard, and Saad Abdul Salam. But those 4 that I mentioned before, the 4 that I top the list with. I mean, Milton Valenzuela, Jordan. We were talking with Ori about the fact that he could actually be somebody that some of these South American clubs could be interested in and European clubs could be interested in, but he never panned out. Now he's gone. Wormgoor, he was a center back that played in that back line and was kind of a staple there for a little bit in their playoff runs. But then again, now he's gone. Harrison Awful was a great piece to have just because he's so reliable. He adds a lot of depth. He plays a good back position. Can join in the attack. And now Charlotte's got an advantage of having a really good veteran player who they'll piece into their starting lineup, and he's going to get a ton of minutes there. Abubakar Keita went to the Rapids. And again, these are guys that were important pieces last year that they're going to have to go in and find some replacements for. Bradley Wright Phillips was also released, and that never panned out. That was one I didn't really highlight because he just never got enough minutes. He never played well. And that's kind of the thing with Bradley Wright Phillips, I think, in his past. It's either been very hit or very miss, and it's nowhere in between usually. So a super sub that didn't work out, a lot of things that didn't work out, Jordan. But some of these transfers like Yaboa, Milos Deginiak, and Julio Anibaba, they'll help out tremendously, I think, just because I think when you're adding guys in, Anibaba was important back in Nashville, and I think could play an important piece for this crew team. Milos Deginiak is a center back that's going to help them and kind of fortifying that back line because their defense has never been that bad. Eloy Room's really good. So when you got a guy like that in between the posts, it's kind of like Union. Like you got such a solid back line if you could just put some guys in front of goalkeepers that are some of the best in this league. But Yaboa is probably the most interesting signing. He's a winger that's coming over, Ghanaian winger. He was with Polish side, Wisła Krakow, I think that's how you say that. But he was a Manchester City guy because I remember him from when he was with the youth academy. So he's coming over with quite some experience, 24 years old. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of plays on the wing when he joins that attack with guys like Zardes, Zelarayan, Pedro Santos. Like those are going to be pieces that I think are going to be important to the crew team this year. But again, I think if it's anything like it was last year, Jordan, I really do. I'm concerned about this team aging. I'm concerned about this team being hurt all the time. I mean, last year, if you look at this roster going into this year, a lot of those pieces missed a lot of time. And I think that's got to be concerning when you're looking at this crew team.
Yeah, we have, Caleb Porter's won 2 MLS Cups.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't know if he's going to be able to keep it going in the crew. I mean, maybe I don't know. It depends on what the fans want, right? Like there are some coaches that can go a long time without winning anything after they just won something and kind of have that kind of leeway in there. I think they will rebound a bit. I think they could make the playoffs this year, but yeah, it's a lot of players out. It's a lot of players in, but I'm not going to be picking them for Eastern Conference winners this year. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah. I mean, look, they've got Darlington Nagbe, a really good player, a guy that I think many thought, because he's American, right? Because I thought they had a whole conversation about Greg bringing him in, and he never got a call, which is interesting. It makes you wonder if he ever had any kind of relationship with him.
He may not want a call.
That's what I was thinking.
He had some sort of falling out with the U.S. system at some point under Klinsmann, so I'm not sure if he would be interested.
Yeah, so you got him, Zelarayan. I mean, MVP level caliber, a player that could win the MVP if he can go back to the form that he was once in. Last year, he had moments, but he was never like Hani Mukhtar. He was never as good as Carlos Gil. Really not as good as Maxi Morales. I mean, he kind of dropped off a little bit. Like he's a really good freaking player, but I think there were times last year where, he didn't even look that threatening at times. And I think some of it had to do with a lot of guys in and around him that were hurt and that midfield not being as solid. So he had a lot more work to do carrying the ball forward. But I really am concerned that he's just not got a lot around him. I think this year's kind of going to be that same thing. I don't think Santos is as good as he once was. Zardes has been injured quite a bit, and I'm not sure that he ever gets back into form. And I'm really scared for the crew if Zardes falls off the kind of the depth chart for U.S. men's national team, as he seems to kind of be falling further and further down the depth chart with Greg. If he ends up out of the U.S. men's national team, that's kind of one of those confidence things that could really just destroy a guy. And there's a lot of nines that are playing well. I mean, you look at PFOC, I think if you're looking at the depth chart for U.S. men's national team, Zardes is quickly falling out of favor just because he doesn't perform anymore.
All right. So are we good with Crew, or are we going to
I
stick with
guess
them
one
for a
more
bit?
thing, Aiden Morris could be thrown into the mix of the U.S. men's national team in 2026. I mean, he's a guy that you look at as a midfielder, tore his ACL last year in the CONCACAF Champions League against Real Esteli, which it was absolutely devastating. It was at home. You remember it? It was really early on. I mean, they
Yeah.
had played a preseason game, and then he played, and he looked really good. I mean, he looked really good. And I think it was in the first, I want to say it was in the first half or so. Really got a leg torn up, and it was just awful to watch. And I remember him sitting on in a wheelchair as they were kind of carting him off, and his parents were there. It was just horrible. But a young kid, I think he was 19 years old when he first made his major league debut back against the Sounders, or it's not a debut, but he had made his in the MLS Cup. It was the youngest player to ever play, 19 years old,
Yeah.
and he was playing against a Sounders team that they just kind of carved up, and he was part of it. So looking forward to him coming back. But other than that, we can move on from the Crew unless you have anything else.
No, I mean, I hope they rebound because they got a brand new stadium, they got a fan base that's happy that they didn't get sent over to Austin. I think it'd be good for them to kind of rebound. I just don't want them to run away with it, I guess, and I don't think they will. So I think we're good. So we're gonna talk DC United. Now this is my dad's team. So if you're listening, Dad, we're going to be talking some DC United right now. 8th in the East, 55 goals, which was 3rd in the league, but they gave up 54, which was, I think, bottom.
Very bottom, like almost. I think there's a couple teams ahead of them.
Losada, though, comes in and impresses in his first season. They were actually in the playoff spot for a good chunk of that last bit of the season, but kind of fell out in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season. And this was a team that nobody really expected that from. What did we have them at? We had them at 12th and 13th, and they end up 8th, which is, the spot right below the playoffs. So they had chances. They had chances to actually get in there. Couldn't. Probably one more win and they're in, but couldn't cut it. Losada really likes to press and counter. He has his usual 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1 formations that he runs. They are losing some players though. They've lost Paul Arriola to Dallas for $2 million, GAM or TAM or whatever it was. Then we have losing Yamil Assad. Kevin Paredes goes to Wolfsburg for $7 million. Felipe Martins goes to Austin on a free. Yordi Reyna goes to Charlotte on a free. Michael DeShields to the Revolution 2. Joseph Mora to Charlotte. Eric Sorga to Gothenburg. Frederic Brion retiring. And Chris Seitz retiring. Is that Seitz or Seltz?
Seitz. You're right.
Seitz. Okay, yeah. That's what I thought. Former Union goalkeeper.
You're really good at picking up
all the goalkeepers. We had all the goalkeepers.
You're just like hoarding them until you found one. But now you probably found the best one in all of MLS history, so that's all right.
Yeah, when we see there, 2010 again, another inaugural season goalkeeper, Chris Seitz. Yeah, then he went to Dallas for 6 years, Dynamo, DC. Yeah. Awesome. In Brad Smith from Seattle Sounders, Hayden Sargis from Sacramento FC, Sofiane DeJeffall, Alex Nagy in the Super Draft, Gasso Samake from Mimosas, and Michael Estrada from Toluca on loan. So I don't know. I feel like they've lost a lot of quality
Mm-hmm.
I do worry that they're not going to have, especially you didn't have Ola Kamara out here. Is he actually gone or is he still
I
here?
forgot it. Yeah, I forgot to put him on because he technically wasn't signed until today, and then I forgot to put him back into the list. But yes, he's out too, Jordan.
Yeah,
Their
so
best goal scorer, 19
losing
goals.
Kamara, 19 goals. Areola had 6, right? So
Mm-hmm.
25 of the 55 goals were those two. Is it possible for a sophomore slump? I would say yes. Now, I'm not going to say that they're going to fall drastically low. I
Mm-hmm.
do think his effect, the Lasada effect, is still going to have a positive impact on the team, but I don't know if they're making playoffs, and I don't know if they're finishing 8th.
Yeah, Ola Kamara. I mean, that's huge news. He was sitting there out there as a free agent, and some people thought that he would come back, but just the fact that they're not bringing him back is concerning. Now, if you look at his goal totals from last year, 19 goals, he did have 9 penalties. But that's still, I mean, that means you're creating a ton. They always had people on their back foot. I mean, it seemed like this team was constantly charging down people's throats, always coming inside and going in and creating chances in the midfield. They had really good midfielders. Paul Arriola actually, he didn't really start the season, and they still played pretty well without him. As they got their feet wet and kind of got him back into the fold. They started the season slower, but I think that was just kind of getting them used to Losada, the chances that he could make up. And then they went on a stretch there. I think it was like from the end of May till all the way down. If you look at down until about August, they'd only dropped like 8 to 10 points, which was really good for this team that I think a lot of people just thought was going to struggle. Their biggest thing was they really struggled in October, like you said, Jordan. When you alluded, I mean, you hit it right on the head, or the nail right on the head. From October 2nd to October 30th, they played 6 games, and they only won one of those games, drew one of those games. So they only collected 4 points out of those 6 games, which 4 out of 18 possible. That's just, I mean, that's what ended up just sticking a fork in them against really good teams, but. I think that's the biggest problem, right? I think they're going to have a really hard time beating really good teams. They just, when you get on the front foot against teams that just don't have good defenses, you're just going to start to wear them down, I think. But they really have a hard time, I think, playing with teams that are really good. They had a hard time defending Nashville. They had a hard time defending New England. Atlanta used to get up on them and score a ton. It just seems like when there was quality in the attack, they actually had a 6-0 loss to NYCFC that really just kind of buried them. They have those results every once in a while. And the really bad thing is their defense didn't get better, I don't think. Like, I mean, you're adding Brad Smith, but Brad Smith was more of an attacking back. Like, I don't know how he's going to help the situation. And they're definitely not going to be helped because Arriola actually played well in defense and pressed really well. So, they're going to lose part of that. They're going to lose Ola Kamara in goal scoring, so they're going to lose some goals. I think they're still going to give up an enormous amount of goals up there near the 50 mark because I just don't see where they've gotten any better. And now I think they're going to take about 10 to 15 goals off of your goal total just because I just don't think they have enough. Kevin Paredes is leaving, star stud young kid that was going to play for the U.S. men's national team eventually. It's huge losses. I'm not sure they've gotten anything to kind of fill in those spots either.
Yeah, not feeling too good about the prospects here. Julian Gressel, though, player to watch. Andy Nahar back with the team. They have Flores, Robertha, and Estrada in the attack. Let's see how it plays out. I do think that they'll still be good. I think maybe they drop a spot to 9th. And I'm not locking that in because I'm not going to remember any of this stuff when I make the prediction next week.
I guess you could just say playoff team or not. I don't think
I'd
this
say
team's
not
a
playoff team right now.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think though, maybe they'll get more points, but still finish lower, and maybe that'll be seen as an improvement where they're like, okay, we really like going this way, and maybe they're able to bring in some more players, not lose as many, and be able to make a push the following year.
Yeah,
because I do think eventually Losada's going to have to make the playoffs to be able to stick around. And the thing is, as we say with all these teams, there's just not enough spots to go around. So every so often, you're going to have a team like the Crew whose expectations were higher and going to fall low of that, fall short of that. So hopefully, if you're DC, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe another team has a down year. Maybe the Revs are a team with a down year, and we steal their spot. And again, as I've been saying, Nashville's out of the East, so there's an open spot there. Can it be DC that fills it? Maybe, but now you also have Toronto that we'll talk about in the next week or so. In the next week, but in the next episode or so. And then you have, some of these teams that have made a crew maybe rebounding, and then you're like, okay, well, there's not another spot then. But maybe one of these other teams drop out. And that's what they'll kind of have to hope for and just kind of take care of the business that they can take care of. And, they could have made the playoffs this year if it wasn't for just dropping a game or two. If they stick it out for a game or two, they're probably in. And then, we're talking about, even though we're talking already about it, what a success Losada's first season is, we'd be really talking about the success, and maybe then we'd still be down on this though because all the players they lost. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of tough. So we'll see how it goes, but we'll see. Let's go to the last team. We're actually flying through this compared to last time. Let's go to the last team of the night. We're going to talk Red Bull New York, 7th in the East, 39 goals last year. Only gave up 33, which was tied for best in the league with Nashville and Seattle. They're trying to make the playoffs for a 13th consecutive year. Pretty big, especially when you realize they haven't won an MLS Cup.
I was hoping you would mention that because I did not put in the notes, and I remember reading it too, but I'm glad you mentioned it. What a host. Yeah,
well, they're reminded of it a lot, so I do apologize, Red Bull fans. Stuber's first real year as a head coach in 2021. So successful season, but they're going to be losing fullbacks Kyle Duncan and Andrew Gutman. Gutman going back to Nashville, right? Atlanta. Yeah, wherever he was.
You were right, but going back, yes.
He's going back. He was on loan. He's going back. Tom Edwards and John Tolking, not J.R.R. Tolkien, but John Tolking, are going to be coming in, though. They've been familiar with Struber's system, and they're proven in MLS. Also going out, Sean Davis to Nashville, Matthias Jorgensen to Esbjerg, Isier Drame to PFK Live. Jake LaCava going to the Rowdies on loan. Daniel Royer released, Luca Lewis released, and Gutman going back to Atlanta. We're getting Lequinas from Warsaw. We're getting Lewis Morgan from Inter Miami, which I thought was a good move. Dylan Nealis from Nashville SC. Zach Ryan coming from Stanford.
Yeah, the Cardinals, I guess. I will say this is where I'll give credit to Chris Smith. He kept a list of all these players and where they came from.
Probably not a draft pick. Probably just free.
Or a free and trialist, probably.
Jesus Castellano, Seth Kuhn, Matthew Nasida, Giannis Nicopolidis, Ovante Mullins, Carlos Coronel from Salzburg, Caden Clark back on loan after they had to end up.
That was great.
After they had to end up. And this actually says Tom Edwards is back from Stoke. So you said that we were. Never mind. I see. I see what you did. Okay.
He went back to Stoke, had problems with injuries, and then returned back to the Red Bull because Stoke was like, well, you're not going to get back in favor here, so go back.
All right, so Sean Davis leaving. That's a big worry. Leadership issues, maybe? I don't know. They get rid of their captain every year, it seems like. Aaron Long, can he come back healthy and play? And where do the goals come from? Caden Clark had a great start to his Red Bull career. Kind of fizzled out. He's still very young, though, of course, so that's going to be part of being young. And I guess Salzburg, he was with Leipzig, right? Leipzig probably not thinking he's ready for it, sending him back on loan. They had to spend some allocation spot. They had to move up in the allocation order to get him back because I guess they didn't plan that well. So what do we think, Logan? 13 consecutive seasons playoffs. Are they going for 14 here? I don't see where they. I don't see them really falling off that much. So I think they'll
Yeah.
probably be in a good spot. But if we're talking about teams that might drop out of a playoff spot, it could realistically be the Red Bulls. They barely made it in.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of things here too to consider. Like like we probably already locked in some teams, and we're going to run out of teams. I think ultimately it's going to be about, because if you look at some of these teams, I mean, you're looking at Sean Davis, who played 300 or 3,060 minutes, which was every single minute, every single match of this year, and that's a huge loss. He was only 27, so
Red
captaining
Bulls
that,
love doing that.
it
They love
is
just getting rid of their
strange.
key players.
Yeah, this is a strange one. I think another one too is Kyle Duncan's going to be really hard to replace. No matter how good Tom Edwards is, no matter how good Tolkien is, I just don't know where they're going to find some of these replacements. But that being said, Jordan, we got an interesting thing here in the East. Unlike the West, where I think the West has teams that could legitimately, a lot of them could make arguments as to why they belong in the playoffs this season. I think the East is the opposite. I think you've got a very top-heavy East, and I think that tends to usually be the case anyway, just because the league scene or the points usually in the East are just so scattered around. Just because I don't think there's like those dominant teams that you have, like a Seattle, and now Nashville's gone, so you throw them over there. So you're now gaining a playoff spot, but you're gaining a team in the East, but that team that you're gaining is probably not going to be too good. So I don't know. I think the Red Bull, like you said, are seventh place, and that I think they'll just even keel it. I think this is where they end up. I'm not locking that in, but if I'm trying to remember the teams that we previewed, I think everybody else is just kind of scrambling around down there at the bottom, and they're kind of mixed in and out. It's more of like who's going to fight for the wooden spoon rather than who's going to fight for the seventh spot. So yeah, it'll be interesting. This East is, instead of the Wild Wild West, this is definitely going to, the Wild Wild West will exist because there's such good teams over there. This is going to be more of like who wants this playoff spot, just like the East, who wanted that top spot in the East. Besides the Revs, was it going to be NYCFC? Was it going to be Philly? Was it going to be Orlando? Was it going to be? It just seems like the East just is nuts compared to the West, and just it's hard to predict the East and what'll happen. A lot hangs on the crew and how the crew do, I think.
Yeah, you hear that, Columbus? A lot hangs on you here on how the season's going to go.
It really does.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, geez.
Maybe we should just run down the teams like real quick. Like,
I think I
tell me
may have
which
said
teams went worse, or got better.
I think I may have said probably out of the 7 teams that can make the playoffs, I'll probably have 8 locked in there.
Who got better?
Who got better? I think the Union got better.
Yeah.
I think Atlanta got better. Toronto
definitely got better.
I've got I do think Cincy is better than last year, but
yeah, it's not saying much. But
I think the Fire may have got better,
but like drastically better, like better to where it's like going to be a different season for these teams.
Drastically better, or a better season for these teams, probably Atlanta, the Union, Toronto.
Yeah.
And that's if the Union can get their striker in. He's still having some visa issues, I guess, or still delays with that. Speaking of which, Montreal has announced that they signed Kai Kamara. Good signing, right? I think that's a great signing for them.
Yeah, we talked about this. We literally just talked about this the other day. They needed a goal scorer. We were looking at Romel Kyoto, 8 goals or something like that. That's what he caps at. Bjorn Johnson, like 6 goals is what he capped at. Who else was it? It was crap. I can't remember who their other striker was. It'll come back to me. But Mason Toy, 7 goals, I think is what he capped out at. This is huge. Like Ola Kamara being thrown into this team. I mean, if he can at least get 10 to 15 goals, like this Montreal team, they could be fighting for a home field advantage, Jordan. Like playing in Hamilton is not easy. So people having to go up and visit, Canada up there and inside their stadium, that's a tough place to play. And fans will be back now in Canada. So the Montreal, I'm liking Montreal's perspectives a lot better than what I was. They've definitely, with that signing, have changed quite a bit, I think.
I agree. No, I can't believe he was out. He didn't play at all last year in MLS, right? I mean, he was kind
Yeah,
of floating
Kai.
around as
Yeah,
a free agent, and I think he went somewhere overseas and then
I think he tried to
played for
play with.
AFCON. So I mean,
Who did he try to play with last year? Ajax or somebody? Somebody he
I
tried
don't
to pick
know.
up with.
But yeah, it was a shame because Kai Kamara is a legendary MLS goal scorer and has its ups and
Did I
downs.
say
But
Ola? I didn't mean Ola. I
yeah,
probably
I
did.
don't know if you did or not,
I
but you
probably
meant
definitely did.
Kai.
I
Yeah,
meant Kai.
sorry.
Yeah, sorry. But still, 10
Um,
to 15 goals if he can get it from Kai Kamara, which I think he's fully capable of doing,
yeah,
especially the way he played with AFCON. Like, I don't know. I am interested where he played. I'm going to go look.
I'm pulling him up too to look at numbers here. He played for HIFK. So that's right. 2020, he was a late trade to Minnesota. That's right. From the Rapids,
Mm-hmm.
and then he pretty much had an end of contract, and in July went to Finland. And I guess they didn't pick up his option for 2022, so now he's going to Montreal. But looking at his goals, SKC, when he played for SKC for 4 years, 38 goals. When he played for the Crew in 2015 to 2016, 27 goals in one season there. Then the Revolution, he had 19 goals, 14 goals for the Whitecaps, 17 goals for the Rapids. I mean, so he still puts away. His worst performance was with Minnesota, 7 games, 1 goal. Yeah, I mean, or Dynamo actually was probably his real worst, 32 appearances, 7 goals. But he's now scored a goal for 8 teams. So if he scores for Montreal, it'll be 9 MLS teams that he had scored for, breaking his own record of 8. So it should be fun.
Gosh, could you just imagine him next to Romel?
I hope he does well. I like Kai Kamara. I think it'd be fun to watch him, and I think that's exactly what they need. So I guess we'll see how that shapes out. Anything else we need to cover with these teams or any of the other big news? I will say I really like Nashville's kit.
Yeah, that's
It
beautiful.
has like the
I love
sound
the sound on the
bars
bottom. Yeah, on the sides.
on like the stripes. I
Their
like that.
stadium, like their little stadium on the bottom right hand corner, is really excellent. I love the yellow though; it like just pops. I think opening that new stadium, I'm so pumped. That is one thing I'm so excited for. Like I can't wait to do a preview show because I want to talk about how excited I am for them to join the West. Just because I think it's going to be freaking wild.
It sucks for them. It sucks for
Yeah,
them, and it sucks for the fans
travel.
because they
Yeah,
really could have become a top team in the East.
they could
Like
have.
no question at all.
You think they come back?
They're 2 seasons. Well, depends if they add a Las
Yeah.
Vegas or something, and then they need to rebalance it. Yeah, they'll probably add them back in. But St. Louis is next.
Mhm. Which they are usually
They are probably
considered
going to be.
West
But
because they're west of Nashville.
Are they west of Nashville?
I'm pretty sure they're west of Nashville, or at least close. I gotta look up a map now.
That's what I'm doing.
This Nashville is on the east side of Tennessee.
So Nashville, yeah, they would be. Yeah, St.
And they're
Louis would
going
be
west.
more west, but I think even Chicago's more west
Yeah, I guess
than Nashville. So
Nashville's like central, more west towards Nashville. I guess it's hard to
maybe they'll. I don't know. I
But
don't know how
there's.
you fix this. I think you make a central division,
I was
and
gonna say,
that's
do
how
you
you
make a
fix it.
division? Do you make divisions?
I think you make 3 conferences, and you
Yeah.
have the East, the West, and the Central. But I don't know how that works with playoffs. So who knows? Who knows how they'll fix that? Because we're adding a lot of more centrally based teams lately. Who's after St. Louis? Do we know? Is that we don't know
Sacramento,
them, right?
but I think Vegas will get it.
Yeah, true.
I think Vegas will get it. I'm trying to think though. Like in the West, I think they could also look at.
See, this is kind of the spot SKC was in and Houston were in for a few years, where they kept flipping from the East and the West because of other teams joining and then them having to shift to the other one because they're so central based, those two teams, that they would start flipping from East and West. And this year it kind of lays on, well, Charlotte's joining, so now you got to get kicked over to the West. And who knows? I guess if St. Louis joins, maybe they're like, well, you got to get kicked over to East, or we just have another team in the West. I guess we don't know.
Or you could what they could do is go total, just combine the whole league in the top whatever teams, which is, I always thought was an interesting concept too, is if you took the whole league. I think soccer is the only one to really work out with. If you took the whole league and put it together under one big league and had the table just run the table, I think, and that'd be easier for scheduling too. I think although the only bad thing then is then you'd have a lot of like, well, I had to play Nashville 3 times and you only got to play them like twice.
Yeah, I think the conferences work because it's a way you can do an unbalanced schedule.
Yeah.
What I also like about it is that I think it creates rivalries, right? In the sense of, if we have to see this team 3 times or whatever, then that creates our rivalry, and we're going to face them in the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. I think if you just went all of them together, you either have to do balanced schedule, which would be a lot of games, or you got to do
4 divisions,
or you have to just do unbalanced. And yeah, you luckily got 3 games against Cincinnati, while I had to play 3 games against Seattle. That kind of sucks. Like, I mean, it's already kind of partly that way, but they kind of face their East Division foes more than their West, and I think that can limit travel too. So I think conferences are good, but maybe we have to figure out
it has to be divisions.
What the central teams do, because the central teams are ending up flying all over the God's green earth to face everybody at this rate.
It'd be fun if you really could. I would think it'd be like, it's probably 6 divisions, so I don't know what the math would be on this, but I think they want to get to 34. Maybe?
Well, if they get to 30, which is their original goal, it'd be 5 a team.
So that would work. Could you imagine though, Jordan?
5 a division.
It would be LA, Seattle, Vancouver, and Portland. Could you imagine that division?
I don't think it would be though. Wild. I think it'd be LA,
Rapids,
RSL. Oh, that's interesting. I was thinking maybe LA, San Jose.
I would think RSL, and then no, because then Cascadia is all screwed. Maybe RSL, and I think it'd have to be the 3 California.
No, I think you just had it. Hold on. I think you have LA, RSL, RSL, Colorado, San Jose.
But then you're kind of like, then who's going to join? I guess Minnesota and St. Louis.
Minnesota, St. Louis.
There's no way they would put that. They're going to have to add a Vegas team.
Nashville.
It would make sense.
And
they're definitely adding a Vegas team. Like, if they're going to do it that way, that would have to be the team they'd add, because they'd have to have another team over there, because there's no way they'd make Seattle go back 3 hours or 2 hours to play Western teams. This is fun.
Hold on. This is easy. I'm pulling up a map of MLS teams. Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd have LA, Quakes, Vancouver, Seattle, Portland.
That's 6 teams. Oh yeah, that'd be right. You need 6 teams. You're right. That's right.
Right.
Yeah, I was doing
5 divisions of 6, or you could do 6 of 5. I guess it doesn't matter.
You'd have to be 5-6. Yeah.
Then you have RSL, Colorado,
Nashville, I would go Texas. Probably Texas.
Then the Texas teams.
And St. Louis or Nashville.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work right now because we don't have.
It had to be Vegas. Yeah. But you see what I mean? Like, if they if they're planning the 5, which I think that's the only thing that makes sense to me now, because those, like, then you're either going to have to force Nashville or St. Louis to play Western Conference games, which is brutal.
Yeah, Nashville is so much closer to the east. The only reason they get moved is because they're
an hour behind.
Chicago could have got moved, honestly, and that would have probably made more sense. But
So I think it's going to have to be the 5-6.
Poor Chicago if they were to get moved. Jeez, we're just really loaded up on the East, though. We are so loaded up on the East. Like, I'm looking at this map. I'm gonna put this map up here real quick because I really like it. It's a really nice map. And then we'll wrap up the show. But I really just kind of want to share this map real quick.
Where'd you find it?
I just oh, that's the wrong thing. I found it under. I just searched like MLS teams on a map. And I found one, and then I found this really good one. So that's the one I... What is the file called? 4-6. Okay. There it is. All right, so I'm going to share this. Look how nice this looks.
How do you like that?
Okay, so it kind of shows all of the teams and where they're placed, and then like kind of where their markets are. So as you can see, the West has only like the real West, right? It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Some reason Vancouver's over Alaska. Ignore that part. So you only have like 6 teams in the actual West. Everything else is like Central and East here. So you have the Union. So I don't know if you were going to make an Eastern conference, it'd be something like a Northeast conference or something. I'd have Montreal, Revs, NYCFC, Red Bull, Philly, DC. Then you can have like Toronto, Columbus, Cincy, Chicago, Nashville,
and St. Louis.
Then you could have Charlotte, Atlanta, Orlando, Miami. Yeah, I mean, there's ways that you can get it done, but
the West teams, man, I feel bad for. That's always the case, though. Like that's why the basketball players hate going out west. That's why they call it the Westward, swing, because it's so awful because they're so far away from each other. Because ultimately, if you're talking about expansion too, you could also do like a San Francisco team or like San Francisco, Vegas, and maybe another team out west, and then make 34 or 32. Because I think it's baseball. Is baseball the one that has 32 and NBA is 30?
No, NFL is 32.
That's the one, yeah.
MLB is 30. NBA is 30?
I think NBA is 28 or 30.
NBA 30.
They need a Hawaiian team. That's what's missing.
Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up. So, like I said, next episode. Geez, I guess this one's coming out on the weekend. So here's our plan. So this was 105. We have 106 coming up, which will be Toronto, Orlando, Dallas, and Galaxy. We have 107, which will be Portland, SKC, Vancouver, and Nashville. We're recording those Monday and Tuesday, so you'll get those probably Tuesday and Wednesday. So this one you're listening to might actually come out Monday. We might just do an episode every day that week. I think that might be best. I don't know. And then 108 that we're recording on Thursday is our predictions and 2022 preview.
We could actually go live for the predictions and preview.
Oh, we could.
And then if people wanted to join in, they could join in. If people wanted to jump out, they could jump out.
So book it. Thursday, the 24th, we're going to be going live after we're both home from work. And so it'll probably be around 6:30, 7 o'clock Eastern time where we're going to be going live. So follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff at Stateside Show. So that way you can keep tabs on when we're going live. And then we'll do our predictions and stuff live. And yeah, like Logan said, if you want to share your predictions, if you want to share your predictions anyway, and we can read them live on air, you can even email us ahead of time, statesideshow@gmail.com, if you want us to read those on the air live during our preview. If I have the Charlotte Magnets by then, we could do a giveaway live. We can do all kinds of fun stuff live. So come hang out with us on Thursday, the 24th, which will be 2 days before the season kicks off, and we'll do our live prediction show. But yeah, I think that's everything. So everyone have a great rest of your week. Keep refreshing that podcast feed for us, and we'll see you later.
Do you smell smoke, Jordan? I smell smoke. I think it's Chicago. I think it's the fire.
They're on fire for sure. Catch a brand new Chicago Fire Wednesdays at 9 o'clock.